Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Bible Ponder for this week. We're coming to our last couple of major themes in the Bible, and the one we're going to be talking about this evening is the theme of water. So far we've already talked about the dual theme of exile and Exodus, the theme of wilderness, and the theme of covenant. And if you want to go back and watch those videos and you have a little refresher, or if you missed them the first time around, you can check them out on the playlist Bible Ponder, either on Facebook or on YouTube. And you'll be able to find all of them there, even ones from before this series. So last week we talked about covenant and how the covenants that God makes with human beings are all throughout the Bible, but what it shows us about God is that God is a God of nearness and closeness and one who wants to have a relationship with human beings. God is not a God of distance or apathy towards human beings. God wants to be together with us in some kind of relationship. So that's a really important part. Today we're talking about water, and water is all throughout the Bible, and obviously water is all throughout our own lives. Water is a fact of life. It is the very thing we need to live, even more than food. So, of course, water is going to be a big part of the Bible and the biblical text. It's actually mentioned over 700 times. It's mentioned more than faith, hope, prayer, or worship, or any of those things. Because again, water is life. And especially for people in the desert of the ancient Near East, it is especially a fact of life because water is more important than anything else. You need it to survive every day. So water is important for that reason, just as the very source of life. But it's also important as a thematic thing in the Bible. So I want to kind of hit how there's kind of two themes of water in the Bible that we can look out for whenever we see it. That it isn't just a liquid substance, but it is meaningful, and it comes in kind of two ways for my reading. So the first way that we see water is a kind of ritual cleansing type of water. So you have the waters of baptism. You have the waters of the Red Sea, which in some places in the Bible are talked about metaphorically cleansing Israel as they come out of Egypt. You have the Jordan River, which again, as Israel enters the Promised Land, and then again, Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist, and John the Baptist is baptizing others in the Jordan River. And then the waters of Christian baptism as it becomes a thing then later in the church to have a ritual baptism, but also echoing the ritual cleanliness of Judaism and the way that you would clean yourself before going into the temple, or clean yourself before sacrificing, or staying ritually clean for different days. Water was an important part of that. And we see that also then in how Jesus washes the disciples' feet, again using the water as sort of a cleansing thing there. But even bigger than that, and this is where I want to really hit this idea of water as a theme. So small water, river water, things like that, ritual kind of clean, but big water can be dangerous. So we can see how the small water and river is important, as we have two different kind of bookends of the Bible. So the first bookend is a river bookend, and that is the river of the Garden of Eden. In Genesis 2 verse 10, we have the Bible tells us that there was in the Garden of Eden, as we have it in the biblical text, there is a river that flows through the garden to give life, and then the river splits into four, and you have that whole kind of narrative. But then at the end of Revelation, the very end of the Bible, you have in the New Jerusalem, there is a river that comes from the throne and flows through the New Jerusalem. So you have this bookend of life-giving rivers, the river in the Garden of Eden, and then in the remade New Jerusalem, a river that comes directly from the throne of God. And that we read about in Revelation 22. But then we also have a different kind of water, not a healing or life-giving water, but a dangerous water. And that's the water of the sea. And you can understand how this would be. Even today, the sea and the ocean are dangerous places. You take out a boat, and even though boats are much safer than they would have been in the ancient world, it's still a really dangerous place. Storms come and you're just a little boat on the ocean. And one of the things that they say is you never realize how small you are, until some of these moments, and especially a moment when you're in a big storm in the ocean or on a lake or something, and you realize, oh, I'm very, very teeny tiny, and this body of water is very, very, very big. It's also deep. You don't know what's in it. The sea has all kinds of crazy, weird creatures, some of them incredibly massive, and the Bible even talks about Leviathan and things like that, and whatever that might have been for the ancient people, whatever they're describing. But there's massive sea creatures. You see all kinds of things. There's crocodiles in the Nile River in Egypt. There's all sorts of things in water that can be dangerous and can be freaky and weird. And storms come and you don't necessarily know where they're coming from, and people die, and there's depths, and you don't really know what's at the bottom of, especially, out in the Mediterranean Sea. You don't know what's at the bottom. You don't know what's out there. You can't know for the people in the ancient world. So the sea is mysterious and dangerous. And in these sort of dangerous bookends, we have also, again, the very first lines of Revelation. The earth is described as a formless void, but a chaotic sea, the deep, it is called. It's just sort of the chaos of nothingness, the chaos of the sea. And God comes, and out of that chaotic sea brings life and order and everything we know in our world. And that same sea then, as a place of chaos and danger, is echoed again, not just in various stories where you understand that the sea is a place of danger and fear, but also again in Revelation, but this time in a sort of different way. So in Revelation chapter 4, near the beginning of the book, you have a vision of the throne room that's sort of outside of time, outside of chronology. But what you see in the throne is there is a sea around the throne, but it's described as a sea of glass. It's clear and calm, but the sea is choppy and murky and dangerous, but this sea is calm and clear. You can see right through it. So the mystery and the danger is taken away. So in the throne room of God, in the presence of God, the sea is calm. But again in Revelation, you see a beast, a dangerous beast that comes out of the sea. And that beast wreaks havoc. But then again, when that beast is destroyed, later in Revelation, you see the sea again, but it's called the sea of glass and fire. And in the sea of glass and fire around it are those who were part of defeating the beast and overcoming the beast. And they sing God's praises from around the sea of glass. So you have a sort of contrast of the formless void as the beginning of the Bible, and that God brings life and order out of this chaos. And then at the end, when you see the throne room and the sea is glass, because in the presence of God, that chaos and that danger and mystery is calmed and cleared. So my message for us, which will seem quite sermonic out of this theme of the sea, is that when we see the sea, we can know it's dangerous, and in the world around us, especially in a year like 2020, the world is crazy, the world is chaotic, the world is dangerous and mysterious, and we don't necessarily know what's at the bottom, and crazy creatures keep popping up and we don't really know what they are. But in God's presence, the sea is calm and the sea is clear. And so what we can hope for and put our hope in is that the dangerous, chaotic seas of our lives will one day be calmed, and that when we are able to experience the presence of God, either at the end of our lives or when Christ comes again to remake this world and make that new Jerusalem with the river coming out of the throne and all of that we look forward to, that in the presence of God, it is calmed. And that is why the stories in the Gospels of Jesus calming the storms on the Sea of Galilee are so important. It isn't just a miraculous thing that he controlled the weather in the same way that he heals a leper or heals someone who was born blind. But to control the sea, to control the weather, is something that only God does. Other people do miracles in the Bible. Prophets do miracles, and all sorts of people, throughout the stories do miraculous things. But God controls the sea, and only God can make it calm. And so when we see Jesus calm the storm, that is why you see the disciples in the boat stunned and terrified, because it's not just another miracle. God is taking the dangerous, mysterious, crazy sea and making it calm. And what they see when they look up is Jesus. And not just a prophet, not just another miracle worker, but God. So my prayer for all of us this evening is that in the midst of the chaotic seas of our lives, of this year, and whatever the future will hold that seems like a deep, dark, bottomless sea, we have the hope that God can calm the sea and that God can bring calm to our lives at some point. And we have that hope, and we look forward to when we get to see the sea clear as glass and not dangerous or chaotic or mysterious anymore. Thanks for joining us this evening. We've got one more thematic week to do. Next week, we'll be looking at the theme of Sabbath and rest in the Bible. And then the week after that, we'll do a discussion to wrap up all of these themes, kind of talk about them a wee bit and dig into any of them that you have questions for. So 2 weeks' time, we'll have a Zoom discussion. Next week, we'll talk about Sabbath and rest. And I hope that it will be an enjoyable time for all of us, and that I hope these themes have really helped to kind of illuminate different parts of the Bible so that when you read, things pop out at you in different ways. Thanks for joining us, and have a good rest of your evening. Bye.